when you talk about the 90s,
Mhm.
what separated us from everybody else?
Well, I believe it's the way we practiced and how we viewed um, each time we were out on that field. And I had to learn this when I came to Nebraska. Coach Osborne and the offensive assistants had to teach me. You guys were not a part of the team when I first got here that first year, 1987. We had beaten Utah State in the opener. So that was my first game here. The second game was going to be a challenge. It was a home game against UCLA, number 2 in the nation versus number 3. UCLA had a great young quarterback. He had just transferred there from Oklahoma, a junior named Troy Aikman. Of course, we are all familiar with Troy Aikman. Great thrower, and that's why he went to UCLA. He didn't want to be in a wishbone offense, so just ran the option. He wanted to throw the football. And boy, they were throwing it there. But UCLA gave us a fit that game. And we really should have lost the game. We ended up winning 41-33. We couldn't run the ball. And we were the number 1 running team in the country. We could not run the ball. Our tight ends were missing. Carnell Lake, and they had Ken Norton Jr. at linebacker. They had a bunch of NFL guys, not only Aikman, but a ton of guys. Gaston Green, a running back. So anyhow, we ended up throwing 5 touchdown passes that game.
Wow.
So here I am, young receiver coach.
Who's the quarterback? Godowski?
No, Steve Taylor.
Steve
Taylor had a big time day.
Ooh, did Dana Brinson
and Rod Smith and Todd Milliken. And
I got a question for that too. I want to ask you a question about that one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll finish the story and then we'll get to your question. So anyhow, here we are battling against these guys, and we only ran the ball for 120 yards rushing. We put the ball on the ground all day long. And my receivers, I'm going to say my receivers, because that's how I viewed it at that time, was like, man, we were heroes. We caught 5 touchdown passes that day. And everybody was like, wow, the receivers, blah, blah, blah. And after the game, I strutting around in that locker room because we won. I'm strutting in the coach's locker room like, yeah, my boys did it, man. You know, I just didn't know better. And Milt Turniper and Frank Solich looked at me and said, what you so happy about? It looked like we had lost the game. I said, man, we won the game. And the receivers, they caught, a bunch of passes today. He goes, we don't care about that. We played terrible. We only ran the ball for 120 yards. We put the ball on the ground all day long. Look, man, we don't celebrate like that around here when we play like that. Win, lose, or nothing, doesn't matter. We don't go by the scoreboard. And Coach Osborne put his arm around me that day and he said, Ron, and he said it in a gentle way. Milton and Frank were upset with me because I didn't understand the culture of this place. I always thought it was just about wins and losses. No, it ain't. We won 11 games every year back then. But you know what? Playing your best was what was important. If you're going to win a national championship, if you were going to beat Miami in the Orange Bowl or Florida State in the Fiesta Bowl or wherever it was, you are going to have to be at your best. And that's how they coached. And I needed to learn that lesson. So that was the culture here. And so what I learned in the 80s, which had been taking place all the way through the 70s, when Coach Osborne had got the reins from Bob Devaney in the early 70s, which was always a part of this football team, it just kept flowing on to the next generations. The next decade experienced the same thing. It wasn't about WL, it was about the maximization of your talent. And anything less than that was not appreciated. You don't celebrate that. And that's why I believe we ended up winning national titles in the 90s with, quote, not non-5-star guys, 3-star, 2-star guys who developed. They became 4-star and 5-star guys when they got out of there, because the way we practiced was about maximization of your talent, your technique, one-on-one blocking, your hand placement, the finish. You finish what you start. When in doubt, lay out. You don't just stick a hand up there and see it. Yeah, you lay out for a ball. You come across the middle. You're blocking on every play. The quarterback on the backside of the toss sweep was knife blocking the defensive end on the backside. You don't run out of bounds. You do not run out of bounds. You take people on. We gang tackle on defense. There are no calculated loafs. 0 calculated loafs. If Coach Osborne ever put that film on and he saw somebody loafing, he'd wear that assistant coach out. And you know what he'd wear him out with? he wouldn't just yell at the assistant coach. He'd go over that next week in practice and take over the drills. And that's the last thing you wanted. That's the last thing you wanted. When Coach Osborne come into your drill, say, I got this.
Take over your whole
He's
drill.
letting you know. He's letting you know without embarrassing you for the whole team. He's letting you know what? You're not getting your message across. So that's when you guys came in the 90s, that's how we were living.
Yeah.
And that's what I had to learn as a young coach.
Yeah. Well, the technique was the word I was looking for earlier. You said it.
Oh.
Technique. Why did we play with great technique? Why was that such high on the pecking order for you guys as coaches to make sure that we had the right technique?
Well, that's a great question. Your technique is what frees you up to play your best athletically. Your first step, you're going to play through your first step. If your first step is bad, the whole thing's bad. I remember Coach Osborne would say things like, okay, we'd run like 32 option, and the play would break down. We'd be -1 or something. And everybody go, well, what happened on that play? Look, it looked like it was going to work. What happened on that play? Coach Osborne from the sideline, he would say, oh, dadgum right guard stepped with the wrong foot. How did he see that? But his eyes were trained for technique.
Yes.
That's why we did all that one-on-one blocking. That's why we did all that stuff that we did in practice. That's why we had 4 stations going on with our coaches divided up among the stations. And and that's why we did all our meetings together as a coaching staff. Like as an offensive coaching staff, we didn't break away and just half the coaches are there and the other half aren't. We were all there. So I knew exactly what Milt Tenneper was teaching the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
I knew exactly the angle that the guard should have when he's pulling and trapping on that particular play. I knew what Frank was telling the running backs on this or that. And they knew what I was coaching on the perimeter with the blocking techniques and all those kinds of things. So with that familiarity with each step and everything and hat placement and finish and all those kinds of things, where you place your hands, your leg drive, getting your whole foot on the ground with your drive blocking somebody, all those little things lead to the maximization of your talent, what gives you the best chance to win and gives you the best chance to win national championships.